Welcome back. As former President Donald Trump solidifies his hold on the Republican nomination, NBC News has learned that Trump allies are encouraging him to pivot to a general election message. Joining me now is a top Trump surrogate who has also been mentioned as a potential running mate, including on Friday night, Republican Congressman Byron Donalds of Florida. Congressman Donalds, welcome back to Meet the Press.
It's good to be back with you. Thanks for having me on. And Kristen, let me push back a little bit. You have to acknowledge the fact that now that the Robert Hur report has come out about Joe Biden's misuse of classified information, which is a violation of the Espionage Act, he had no rights to any of those documents when he was a senator or vice president. Yet there are no charges against President Biden. But President Trump is under prosecution. Come on now. We know that doesn't make any sense at all.
I have to hit the pause button for 1 minute, Congressman, because the Hur report was very clear that there was not enough evidence to bring charges against President Biden, and that ultimately there was not enough. That is what the Hur report said. Congressman, that is exactly what the Hur report said. Yes, it is. It said that there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough evidence to bring charges.
You cannot possess those documents as a senator or a vice president. You have no right to those documents as a senator or a vice president. They must remain in a secure facility. Joe Biden took them from a SCIF. That's a violation of the Espionage Act. Period.
Okay. All right. Bottom line, though, Hur himself said there wasn't enough evidence to bring charges. Let's move on to this next topic, though. I want to talk about the Alabama IVF ruling. This week, you said that you agreed with the state Supreme Court's decision that embryos are children. I just want to put a fine point on this. Do you support IVF as it is practiced in the United States, which involves the production of embryos that are sometimes destroyed or even donated if they're unused?
Well, first, I do support IVF because I have several friends that have gone through that procedure. It has made their families whole. It's allowed them to have children. Their children are beautiful. They're wonderful. I totally support the procedure. Number two, when the NBC reporter asked me that question, I was in the middle of a hallway. I heard the tail end of it. I didn't hear about the Alabama ruling. It was about, do I support that embryos should be protected as life? Look, embryos are important to the production of life. We all come from embryos. That's what I said because I heard half her question. But do I support the IVF procedure? 100% I do. It should be made available. And I believe, as President Trump has also said, we really want the Alabama legislature to make sure that that procedure is protected for families who do struggle with having children. That helps them actually create great families, which is what our country desperately needs.
So just to be very clear, though, if you believe that embryos are children, do you think they should be treated as people with all the same legal rights as people?
Well, I think now you're getting to a personhood argument. And this is where a lot of the details in legislation, not just court rulings, are important. I believe that this is something that the legislatures have to make sure they weigh and walk themselves through. The IVF procedure is very important to a lot of couples in our country. It should be protected. I agree with President Trump on that. But when we get into these conversations, it's important to delineate from what just one judge might say versus what a legislature and a governor will decide when they go through the legislative process.
And you raised the point that President Trump is calling for lawmakers in Alabama to take action. There is also federal legislation that is being proposed. Will you support that would protect IVF services at the federal level?
Like any type of bill that gets drafted on Capitol Hill, I want to see the devil in the details. But yes, I feel I could broadly support that because, like I said, IVF is something that is so critical to a lot of couples. It helps them breed great families. Our country needs that.
All right, let me ask you now about Ukraine and the aid that is pending on Capitol Hill. At a town hall in January of 2022, you said that America needed to be engaged in Ukraine because, quote, if you essentially allow the bully to bully, you're going to be drawn into a broader conflict you do not want to be a part of. Today, you oppose additional aid to Ukraine. What changed, Congressman?
My opposition has been very simple. Joe Biden needs to secure our country. The first job of the federal government is to secure the nation, secure our borders. He has failed in that. We are going to have 10 million migrants come into our country at the end of his first term just because he wants to have an open border strategy. That doesn't help our country. And so many citizens are saying, why are we sending billions of dollars to protect Ukraine while our country remains open? So my message has been clear. I agree with the speaker. You want to talk Ukraine funding? Let's talk about it, but you got to secure America first.
But Congressman, you had the opportunity to take significant actions to secure the border. The Senate came up with a deal that some veteran senators was the best deal they'd seen to secure the border. It didn't even include demands by Democrats for a path to citizenship. For example, the Border Patrol Union even endorsed it. How can you make that argument when you oppose that and when Republicans oppose that in the House?
Oh, it's very easy because it was a terrible deal. That bill would have codified all the actions of Joe Biden when he became president. There would have been no stop to the flow of migrants going into Detroit, Chicago, Denver, New York, etc. It wouldn't have fixed anything, Kristen. It was a terrible deal. And by the way, it didn't even pass the Senate. So if it doesn't pass the chamber of Congress, it is no deal.
But Congressman, the Border Patrol unit that endorsed former President Trump also endorsed this plan. And again, so did a lot of your Republican colleagues on the Senate side who said this is as good as it's going to get. So can you really say you did everything and that you have done everything possible for the border when you've opposed that deal?
In the House, we passed H.R. 2. It is the most robust border security package ever to pass a chamber of Congress. And I stress, Kristen, H.R. 2 has passed the House. The Senate deal did not pass the Senate. Chuck Schumer in the Senate won't even take it up for debate. He ignores it. That's on Chuck Schumer. But at the core of this entire question, the number one job is to secure the country. Joe Biden doesn't even need legislation to secure the country. He could do that right now. He can undo all of his executive orders that he put into place when he became president of the United States. That's what created the crisis that we have today.
Congressman, as you know, executive orders often get tied up in the courts. That's what happened under former President Trump. But let me ask you big picture, because the government is careening toward another potential shutdown in just days. Are you willing to shut down the government over border security?
And I believe Joe Biden is willing to shut down.
But will you? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to do?
But
Congressman, what are you willing to do?
Let me be clear. I'm willing to fund the government as long as our border is secure. The first job of the government is to secure the border. Any business that provides a service, if they don't give you the service, do you give them money? The answer is no. Kristen, you don't even do that. So we have to be honest with the American people. The government has a responsibility. Our cities are overrun. Our schools are overrun. Our shelters are overrun. And Joe Biden allows the disaster to continue. Kristen, let me add this wrinkle. There are young women who are sold into sex slavery by the drug cartels every single day.
Yeah.
Joe Biden allows it to occur. That is un-American. It is not humane. Our border must be secured, period.
So, Congressman, just yes or no, and of course the Biden administration is working on executive actions as we speak, but just yes or no, would you vote to shut down the government if you did not see a border security plan in the package? Just yes or no.
I will not be voting for any funding if the border is not secured.
Okay.
Anything I vote for has to secure our border, and the president should agree to that. That's common sense for a nation like America.
All right. Congressman Donald, thank you so much for your time today and your perspective. We really appreciate it. And when we come back, Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom of California and his thoughts on the 2024 race. Stay with us.